Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Rift is refreshed and ready for our next game of the day. G2 Esports versus 1907 Fenerbahce. With picks and bans right around the corner, here are the players fighting for the win on the Rift. Let's start on the blue side. It is going to be G2 Esports. That means it's expect in the top lane. Trick roaming around in the jungle. Perks controlling the mid. Sven at bot with Misty. Right in his back pocket is his support as always. Young Buck, let's coach for picks and bans.
And their opponents for this game on the other side of the Rift, we have 1907 Fenerbahce. In the top lane, Thaldrin. In the jungle, Crash. Mid laner, Frozen, who has been outstanding. And the bot lane duo going to be Patton and Japone. With coach Serdar Perez.
I like it. I tried my best.
I'm not gonna give you anything more than that.
And there are just flashbacks right now for many European fans, like we remember last year, Albus Nox Luna versus G2. Everyone was expecting G2 to be the favorites, but you can never quite count out these teams when it comes to this level of competition.
That's right, and while the TCL champions are considered an underdog in this group, they did show some promising plays in the early game versus Royal Never Give Up, a team that obviously is going to hit pretty hard.
Yeah, I think especially people were expecting Patton to get slammed in lane against Uzi, right? Through the play-ins, they had really struggled in lane, but then they went pretty much even in that laning phase, which was very impressive. And I think that Crash has been playing extremely aggressive. He is someone who can look to be a playmaker for this team. And if Fenerbahce can get to the team fight stage of the game with Frozen and with Patton in a good spot, they could look to deal some damage here to G2.
Ezreal Rakan taking out a little bit of that Crash craziness from Ezreal. No Japone Rakan initiation. Star being taken out to take the cow away from Middy. Keeps his head out of the game in the early stages.
It's important to remember both these teams are searching for their first win. And yes, it is only their second game of the groups, but because this is such an incredibly difficult group that they are in, they need to be able to pick up wins early and often if you want to be able to get out of groups. I mean, you're going up against Samsung. There are heavy favorites in this group. Most people are not expecting to get a win against them, or if they do, at best, maybe one. And then you have RNG, you have G2, you have 1907 Fenerbahce, and if they can steal a game off of G2, that could really hurt G2's chances of getting out of the group.
Possible first pick, Aurelia. Not Lulu getting locked in here. The Jana not banned either, as the Zaya was a final from 1907 Fenerbahce. They will be looking to start something off on their side, possibly the AD carry and that jungle.
My problem with this sort of pick ban, when you actually allow the Lulu to go over, is a first pick like this, and you haven't banned out a Jana or anything for G2, you're now giving over the top priority jungler as well as the top priority AD carry, and they're still able to get an ultra high priority support as their third pick for the Jana. So I don't love the way that G2 has actually gone through this. No, it does not mean that they are at a massive disadvantage all of a sudden, but I do think it hurts their chances somewhat because it's giving Fenerbahce essentially first pick of two roles as well as, you know, a pick that I think goes even or maybe even his advantage in the Jana in the later stages of the game.
Yeah, I think as well, when you think back to the playing stages, Pan, he had a very impressive Cogmore game too. Thinking back to their performance, so they were in a 3 versus 5 fight. And Pan was still able to come out on top with a very impressive support play from Thaldrin as well. I feel like that, especially when you look at team fights and when you look at Cogmore as a champion and the value he adds later on to the game, this could be a big comfort pick for 1907 Fenerbahce, and I'm excited to see what they're able to do with it against the powerhouse of G2.
The one thing I will say, despite the fact that Pat and Japone went even against RNG's bot lane, they didn't have the advantageous bot lane. They were playing with the Thunderlords. Lulu, G2 has one of the strongest bot lanes, if not the strongest, in the West with Sven and Mindy. And if they are the ones who have the advantageous bot lane, they could look to really punish Patton. As we have seen, he's been able to be punished in the play-in stage. So that's somewhere that they could really look to attack. Bring down Trick. Try to focus these guys and put it behind before Patton can get to that comfortable spot where he can take over a team fight.
And it's very easy to do that when you have a Tristana Lulu. We've seen that be a very comfortable big power duo in the bottom lane in the hands of Sven and Mindy. You expect nothing but pressure to come out from the European superstars as we move into the second half of the draft.
And hopefully they don't go too late in the game. Those first 3 picks from 1907 Fenerbahce were the same exact ones for Misfits that they used very late into the game. in that Kog'Maw, Sejuani, and Janet. Cho'Gath going in for Thaldrin as the captain in the top lane can make calls from the Void champion.
Now, this is interesting. We'll see if Expect is actually going to go for the Trundle, which would be the second time in 2 games, but before that, we had not seen it at all.
Yeah.
Because, to me, it looks like 1907 Fenerbahce is trying to push them towards a Maokai. When you have the Cho'Gath picked up, when you look at the bans targeted at the top lane, they don't seem to be worried about that. Maokai very much, so we'll see if Expect actually wants to go for something a little bit more lane dominant, which I would think would be a very good idea. We saw how effective it was just last game for Alfari. This would give them advantages in both top and bot lane. So unless Frozen can really get an advantage in the mid lane, things are starting to look pretty good for G2.
You could look at something like a Cassio for Frozen, a champion that in the past was very well known for going pretty even up against the Rise, and I think that it's also a big comfort pick for him in the middle lane as well. But I feel like that you heard Max Law talking about how at breakfast they all sit together, they all talk about the performance that they've been having through Worlds. I also think they've all been talking about Trundle. They're like, hey, what's really good against tanks? Like, hey, what about that dude we've actually been playing? And you're like, oh yeah, he is good. And then now they're all bringing it out. Now we get to see and evaluate how what Expect can do in this similar matchup, and if 1907 Fenerbahce can shut him down.
I mean, I think when you draft dominant lanes on top and bot, and you have the more prominent early game jungler in the Gragas, these are some things that G2 can really take comfort in, especially when you look at the second phase of bans here for 1907 Fenerbahce. They're focusing Expect, and they're still ending up with a somewhat disadvantageous lane. The big thing for them, though, is going to be all about the later game team fights. If you look at Cass, if you look at Kog'Maw, supported by this Janna, as well as an incredibly strong frontline of Sejuani and Cho'Gath, that is somewhere where they could really dominate if they're able to get going. But G2 don't want to give them a chance.
This is also an extremely potent Baron-taking team. Kog'Maw, Cassio, on top of a Cho'Gath as well. One small mistake from G2 could result in a very swift objective being taken down, so they're going to have to maintain good vision control around the top side of the map as they look to try and set themselves up for a strong Trundle and a strong Rise later into the game.
G2 Esports of the European LCS, 1907 Fenerbahce Espor of the TCL, both looking for a win here in Group C. Fenerbahce goes on to face Samsung Galaxy. G2 to RNG. Like we said, it's going to be hard out of this matchup to see who's going to be 1 and 2, but this win right here will help that cause.
Certainly will, and as we're getting onto the Rift already, my eyes are kind of drawn to the bot lane, as Sven's going to be starting with a Cull. And while that is, something that you can probably get away with in a lane like this, he's obviously not going really for a lane dominant style. It doesn't mean that he couldn't still achieve that, but going for something like a Doran's Shield or a Doran's Blade is going to give you more laning power. It's going to give you the ability to bully out your opponents even more so. This to me says either A, they don't think that they can actually dominate this lane and they're just trying to eke out the extra economy advantages with both the Cull and the refillable from Mithy. Those are some edges that they could get.
Slow movement towards the bot side, but more spread out than usual here just for the line of scrimmage. Nobody really expects too much to happen. The Raptor wards are placed up, so they might catch a glimpse of somebody walking that top side.
Now, what's interesting about these two teams is that G2's first game during the World's group stages, their eyes were focused very much on towards the top side. Expect played that Shen into the Cho'Gath, and we saw a lot of jungle attention from Trick. He went up towards top, he forced a flash out of the enemy Cho'Gath, and then he kept trying to repeat those ganks to get Expect into a favorable position. Whereas for 1907 Fenerbahce, they were playing much more towards the bottom side of the map. They wanted to try and shut Uzi down, and in the early game, they did a fairly decent job of it, but that was all because Crash had a good number of early kills when he was playing middle. He's now being forced to play the Sejuani. He has to be more of a team fighter. He has to be more passive, which isn't really the style that we've been seeing from Crash during the playing stage.
I do agree you're not as aggressive and explosive as something like Nidalee, but you certainly can pull the trigger on these team fights. When you hit level 6, you have the ability to set up these initiations, and as we have seen, the masteries popped up. It is going to be the wind speakers from Mithy, so I think that this makes sense with what they are showing me from their itemization. This is something I've talked about in the past, but it's going with all these kind of more greedy defensive style setups as far as itemization with the coin instead of a spell fuse, with a refillable instead of 3 potions, with a cull instead of endurance plate. So when you go with the wind speakers along with that, you're saying, hey, we want to play defensive, we want to play scaling, and we're looking for our advantages later on.
Expect a push to the turret here from Sven and Mithy as they go quite hard on the lane. Not giving a moment to stop here and trying to pile up on Hone and Pat to get that damage down as much as possible. Things going slow. 14-9 so far. See how much they can deny as it gets into the turret.
Now, many eyes will naturally be on the bottom lane. Sven and Mithy, somewhat the pride of Europe. Their bottom lane has been able to keep up with some of the best of them. And Pat, he did have an impressive playing stage, but it's very difficult not to have your eyes drawn towards the mid lane as well, because you have Perks, considered the king of Europe, as it were. You have to play in his lane kingdom if you really want to make a name for yourself within the region. And you're also going up against Frozen, who is considered one of the main carries of 1907 Fenerbahce. During the regular season, he had claimed multiple titles, best mid laner throughout the region. He was considered MVP of the region as well. And this guy has been one of the better performers of the team and is now looking to make a name for himself on the international stage.
And he's even someone that, while he had limited performances in the LCK, he did perform well when he played. He's someone who has been able to perform not only in the TCL, but across the world, right? And he is bringing it now to that world stage, trying to show what he has. And so far, he's been very impressive.
Huge factor on that Syndra throughout the play-in stages, and really just showing that he can be a pivotal point for that team, allowing Thaldrin, captain, to make those calls and make everything go accordingly. Both teams kind of looking for that in the early game. The push in the bot lane still consistent coming in from Sven and Mithy, but they've been holding it quite good on the side of Padden and Japone. No real damage just yet.
Note as well how Expect, he's playing a little bit more reserved in that 1 versus 1. He doesn't want to run the risk of overextending. He realizes that there's not enough vision in the top side of the map, so he's not going to play the same sort of style that Alfaro had, which is very much in your face, knowing that he had a little bit more jungle support from Maxwell around the top side of the map. And once he completes his first item, which we will expect to be that Tiamat, that's when we can start to see Expect be a little bit more aggressive and maybe a bit of a gank up top from Trev.
And you can tell that a lot of the G2 game plan is about that top lane, just based on the way that the bottom lane is not trying to push their advantage. They're trying to play passively. It's going to be about expecting a side lane, because normally you would say if you have an exceptionally strong laning duo, you want to try to exploit that, right? You want to try to bully these guys, because the downside of this is that Padden and Japone are going to get to sit back, and they have pretty greedy starts here too. This is a Relic Shield start for Padden. They're going to be getting a lot of gold out of that, and if they can farm even or better against G2, that is going to be really nice for them, and getting them towards the later stages of the game, getting them to that team fight stage where they've shown that they can be very strong.
It's like a wave clear here. Does not want much more time in lane as they back for the bot side. We'll see what items they come back with here. Just half on the call. They are forcing that thing to 0.
It's actually a really good job by G2 tracking where the wards had gone down. That pink position right there that Trick just dropped is not a normal spot, so they had a good idea of where those 2 wards were. They're able to clear them both out, and Expect.
Great dodge there. He's going to be able to get himself just out of enough passive hits. No crowd control there. Perks just gets off the ground so he can keep himself safe.
And G2 now have information as to where Crash is. Immediately Trick gets a bit of deep vision down onto the bottom half of 1907 Fenerbahce's jungle, and then he's going to go back to base and path accordingly. It looks like towards the top side of the map, maybe he wants to try and get something for Expect, or maybe just relieve the pressure so that Expect can go back to base and spend a bit of that juicy gold.
And Sven, because they had the push, was able to get off the earlier buy, so he's come back with the VF, and they're going to continue trying to shove in Padden, try to keep him around on this Relic Shield, not allow him the time to actually go back and make a purchase. With the kind of scattered back timings, though, from G2, perhaps they can actually push it out. They know that Mithy just went back to base, and it may give them the confidence to try to reset this lane.
I find it interesting what supports decide to go for. Japone says Aether Whip, damage, speed, and then you see Heal Shield from Mithy. Idle. Always a choice. You can go with either. He still has the ability to put out that damage from him.
Very early armor boots coming out from Pan as well, respecting the damage output from G2, also showing respect towards Expect, who will be a big threat later on into the game. For the time being, it looks like G2, they're going for a dive top. Bear in mind, Thaldrin, he has not gone back to base yet, G2, they just want to try and delay that for as long as possible. Expect even TP back into lane so that he can already get a bit of extra damage down onto that tier 1 at the top.
Slow going for Crash. Just waiting for Frozen to slither on over. Go on monitor, getting pushed in, so he'll be good to farm now in that mid lane. It resets. Bot lane still getting pushed in here, and it does start to have a little bit of a gap, 64 to what could be about 55 here after all cleaned up. We'll start to see that stretching a bit for Sven here. The backs are going to start mattering after this call.
And the turret pressure really can create a lot of issues for Fenerbahce. If you're constantly drawing Crash down, if he gets to the point where he has to come down and be that supporting force to keep that turret alive, it gives G2 a lot of flexibility to make plays on the other side of the map. While Rise may not be favored in this 1v1 matchup, Perkz is doing great, and he's on a champion who can utilize the Realm Warp to get out there on the map, to look for roams, to try to attack a side lane where they have their advantages.
I think we've seen some pretty impressive Rise ultimates this tournament as well. Their ability to quickly move your entire team from one location over towards the Baron, or maybe even move a minion wave from one place to another. But it can also be used early on to set up for a flank down into the bottom lane. We can see that Sven and Mithy continuing to push onto this tower. It's now at about 50% of its HP. And all you need is a very quick ultimate from Perkz to then maybe fall behind the bottom lane of 1907 Fenerbahce, maybe get yourself a couple of early kills, and they're already setting up a few wars to prepare for this potential dive.
And Trick just wants to come, even if you zone them off a wave, you allow yourself to get a few more hits on that turret, it's getting dangerously close to that place where an explosive charge is going to knock it down. So Fenerbahce have to push forward. They have to try to defend it more aggressively, and that's putting them into these disadvantageous trades.
Haddon takes a good hit here. You can see Trick hovering, saying, my team's a bit pushed up. Might have to get ready for this counter gank. Little does he know. Now Crash is just above him. A back and forth in the top lane. Ult still held by those top laners.
Perkz making the roam up, though. He has the Realm Warp, and they can go for this. Trundle ult is popped.
Just going to be in range. Expect getting a few chomps down himself. Takes a bite out of Crime, and the kill goes over. You expect in that top side, Trick and Crash meet each other in the jungle. Looks like Trick's going to waltz out of this one, knowing the other side of the map has the advantage.
This is actually so big, too, because Staldron is without his TP, so this gives so much free time for Expect. He can either bounce the wave and reset it for himself, or he can just get a tremendous amount of turret damage down with that frozen domain, as well as the chomp resetting on that turret, and he may actually be able to knock down the first turret with some time up in the top lane.
And this is exactly what we wanted to see from G2, utilizing that Rise ultimate to make plays across the map. It's already going to set up Expect to be this massive side lane threat. Going towards the Cull, taking down that first tower, 2,000 gold lead in favor of G2.
Yeah, and when you take a look at where that gold is, it's almost all an Expect,
all of
it. Very disgusting. I mean, the fact that he has a Cull here as well, by the time he cashes out, he got solo first turret gold in an advantageous matchup. He's building for the 1v1. He has a Cull. This is going to be so hard for Galdrin.
And now you're looking at G2 to set their eyes on this bottom tier 2. All they needed to set up a bit of defensive vision to make sure that Sven and Mithy are not interrupted, because their eyes are dead set on taking down that tower and opening up the map even more.
And look at what Expect gets to come back to, probably down to about 30 on his call after he gets to soak up all these waves. Staldron couldn't reach it to the turret. Like we said, no teleport back. That was a long walk for him. We'll see this all over again as Perkz started that roam quite early.
So the key thing you need to keep your eyes on is the Cauldron Q. He's going to try and time his knockup to land just as Perkz arrives just a little bit too early, which means that Perkz does not get CC'd and is able to land the CC chain. Cauldron doesn't even bother flying.
It's so tough. How often do you get to try that, right? It's like, I have Zanya's down now. Realm work into skills. Still working on that one. Even the pro is having trouble.
Now Crash is moving bot to try and alleviate some of this pressure, but he's immediately moving towards the top side because he knows that Sven and Mithy, they recognize this and they're just going to back off.
5-1-4. That's a 5,140 to 3,600. That's where that gold was, as you said, Azale. If you look at 20K to 17.8, just about 18. This guy is controlling the game. Money bags for Expect on this Trundle.
Yeah, I mean, Expect is like 1,700 gold ahead, and he's closing in on actually cashing out on that call. So this is going to be such a point of contention for 1907 Fenerbahce. Even if they have a great team fight, even if they can get a 5v5, they would always win it. Expect does not have to give that to you. He can create a tremendous amount of pressure in those side lanes. And as long as he's able to draw multiple people to him and not die throughout the control of vision, you know, if they're able to actually combine Trick and him and even utilizing perks to get in that jungle and get the vision, he's going to be able to stay safe, and he's going to be able to be such a pressure point for the G2 team.
And the thing is, for 1907 Fenerbahce, they're relying on the late game insurance of their composition. And while a team like Misfits may take the game slow and progressive, G2 are a little bit faster when they've gotten themselves a lead. They're much more rapid to push this lead and keep the aggression up, especially when you're on a roaming mid laner like Rise for Perks. This guy knows very well what to do with this lead, and I would not be surprised to see him flounder it as the game progresses.
Like so far, having a field day in the top lane. Wards are working out, so for the time being, we'll be able to continue to push that advantage. All the wards for 1907 Fenerbahce on the bottom side of the map, which means hardly any wards are being cleared. That pink one's been alive for quite some time. They should know that the vision is denied on that one, but don't have the right to walk in their own jungle just yet. So 1907 Fenerbahce kind of sizing up how G2 is doing right now. Hope to see a fight from them with a bit of this forward vision.
I think if you're sizing up how G2 is doing, it's pretty damn well. This game is going really all in their favor. You have multiple calls on their team. They've gone for more of these kind of greedy builds. They have pressure on bot side. They have pressure on top side. They're already a few thousand gold ahead, and they're very, very close to knocking down that bottom lane turret. So next time they actually get it up to that turret, if Trick wants to go down there or Perks wants to make a roam down there, they can put on the pressure, knock that down, and then even look to start threatening something like your dragon, grab an additional objective there to really just extend their lead.
Teleports up for top laners. Ultimate down for Thaldrin as he's starting to chop down on a few minions. Has to figure out which ones are going to make him bigger, which ones he's going to need for the fight. Kind of pushing Expect out, but this is back and forth. Expect is pretty much playing a game of yo-yo here. He gets to go in and back out whenever he wants, having control of that lane, making it very hard for Thaldrin.
There was an opportunity there for G2 to play towards that red buff. Giving that objective over to Expect would have made that lane even more of a terror for Thaldrin, but instead they decide to back off because Perks wanted to spend his gold. No, he has decided to pick up the Abyssal Mask. A little bit of a variation from what we have been seeing, because a lot of the rises at this tournament have focused on the Rod of Ages. Yeah. But I have heard that according to the math, the mask is a lot more optimal.
Yeah, I mean, you're only losing a couple percent in damage, essentially. You're buffing up your teammates' damage, but also, I mean, I feel like a broken record in these games today because I'm talking about all the magic damage coming out from these teams, but it's even more extreme in this game, where Kog'Maw deals a lot of magic damage too. All of the damage coming out of 1907 Fenerbahce is heavily magic damage, so the Abyssal is going to make it massively more tanky. It's exceptionally efficient, and Expect really can go even just straight adaptive and spirit visage and be almost unkillable.
Realm Warpers there if they did want it. Obviously just lane pressure. They didn't know where the rest of the team of 1907 Fenerbahce was, and the Rift Herald gets called out. A final shot, and that turret is down.
3 towers now in favor of G2 Esports. They've been able to quickly take the bot, using the Rift Herald to take mid, and Sven and Mythia continuing to push bot. There's no answer right now from Fenerbahce because they've sent that bottom lane up to the mid.
I mean, Fenerbahce kind of overcompensating in their response. They sent everyone over to try to answer this turret that is already effectively gone. That allows G2 to create more pressure on the bot side. They're not losing anything elsewhere on the map, and really, everything is going so well for them. This is something you rarely see. Sven actually completes 2 items without even having brown boots yet.
Oh my word, 16 minutes. Infinity Edge, Static Shiv.
That's the 2-item power spike. But if he can get in range, it's gonna hurt.
That's the Cole man. He's just like, I don't need to look good in my boots. I got swords for days.
He's got whimsy boots. He just has to stay near
That's
Mythia
true, yeah.
Also buffered rocket jump. Pretty good. Looks like they're going to be able to pick up this Drake. Nice and easy. G2 gets a little bit more speed behind them with a Cloud Drake locked down here at 16.5 in. Everything in their favor. They have not lost a turret. They have not died, and they are controlling the lanes quite nice.
I mean, Expect is 2,000 gold ahead of Thaldrin right now. He's such a strong point in this game that, honestly, I don't even think he would lose a 1v2, or at least he can disengage a 1v2 if it's Crash and Thaldrin. They don't really have enough damage to take him down. I mean, you could simply ult the Cho'Gath and try to disengage with your pillar. At this point, it's really hard to see what 1907 Fenerbahce can do other than forcing on the rest of the team. They have to find a pick on someone like Perks or Sven, and a lot of that just means, well, Crash, you better engage, because he's the only one who can.
The thing is, though, is that Fenerbahce now being split apart onto all 3 lanes, because remember, Perks, he doesn't have the TP, he has decided to go for the cleanse, but now that he's level 13, his ultimate has that extra bit of range, and he can move very freely between both bot and top and mid, and he just has that additional bit of freedom to just help G2 apply map pressure all across the board. So things are going to get even harder if 90% Fenerbahce don't even have the option of just grouping up and forcing a fight.
And they got coupons left and right. Spectre Cowls, you got merch threads coming in, let's buy them in bulk, might get a discount. That's the thing for G2. Magic resistance right now, as you were saying, is down. 1907 Fenerbahce is only going to have a harder time using any of this AoE damage to find a dead member of G2 Esports. Blue is now going to be taken. They start to deny the resources of 1907 Fenerbahce as they start to deny the jungle.
And when you have this kind of a lead this early on, that's really the best play that you can do, because Baron hasn't even spawned yet. You've taken all the tier 1 towers, so you just want to deny as much as possible from your opposition. Keep them forced underneath their tier 2s, steal away all of the jungle camps, and just make their life as difficult as possible while continuing to build your lead.